Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 6 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Space Jammed. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. In this episode, Lisa and Todd blast off into space so they can get away from Leni's intrusive babysitting. But when the ship begins to malfunction, Lisa has to call Leni to help get everything under control again, and she comes to find out ignoring Leni from earlier contributed to her near-deadly encounter with the sun. The episode ends with Lisa and Todd safely returning to Earth, and Lisa promising to listen more often to the big sister who will never stop looking out for her. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. The very first thing that stood out to me was seeing yet another unique character pairing for the series, this time featuring Lisa and Leni. It's an interesting dynamic because for the longest time, I could never think of a situation where these two could share the spotlight together, and then this episode came along. What's also noteworthy is that these two, along with Todd, are the only characters to appear, and I believe this sets the record for having the smallest cast in a single episode. That voice recording from NASA could technically be considered a character, but that's beside the point. Anyway, let's first talk about Leni. She was, in my opinion, the best character of the episode, and it's not hard to see why. This episode is presented as a follow-up to the Season 5 episode, The Boss Maybe, where Leni became the new family babysitter, and that was her role in this episode as well. Even though Lisa wasn't doing what her big sister was telling her to do, Leni was not falling apart and getting overwhelmed like she did the first time she was put in charge of her siblings. Maybe Lisa being the only sibling she had to look after may have had something to do with it, but that's neither here nor there. It's clear the confidence Leni developed in Season 5 has carried over into Season 6, and unlike Drill Sergeant Lori, Leni is more laid back and not forceful when it comes to giving out orders and requests. She also displayed a good balance of being ditzy, lovingly wholesome, and intelligent, with the third one being the most noteworthy. She was able to not only follow Lisa's directions for controlling the rocket precisely the way she was instructed, but she quickly remembered the code for the rocket booster and was able to save Lisa and Todd from being dragged into the sun and getting burned to death. I don't know if that's something the old and more simple-minded Leni would have been able to do, but it goes to show how far she's come as a character since the first season. As Lisa's babysitter and more importantly big sister, she says she's always been looking out for her and always will. Lisa may have thought Leni constantly being on her case about doing things like having a snack and taking a nap was a bit too much, but what Leni did is what a responsible babysitter and big sister would do. She told Lisa how she could wake herself up by shaking her willies out, since there was no time for an actual nap given the near-fatal circumstances, and she even had the instinct to put food in Lisa's backpack just before she took off into space. Although that does raise the question on when and how she did that if Lisa was hiding out in her bunker. Well, hey, maybe it's a babysitter thing like Leni said. And of course, I really respected how she kept her cool when Lisa got back and didn't lay into her about not listening. She's just too nice of a character to get all fired up, even if what Lisa did would justify a severe tongue lashing. Her little sister may be a certified genius and has a somewhat strong sense of independence, but at the end of the day, Lisa is still 5 years old, and maybe there's a reason why she still needs to listen to adults because they probably know what's best for her. So now would be a good time to talk about Lisa. First and foremost, I just want to quickly acknowledge her little adventure in space. I can't be the only one who noticed how she was still breathing after she was cut off from the rocket and started floating away. She also didn't go into freefall after she let go of Todd for a brief second. It also took an incredibly short amount of time to fly all the way past Venus and Mercury and eventually reach the sun. Gotta love that cartoon space logic, you know? But anyway, if there's something I can say about her character that really stands out in this episode, it would be the very subtle foreshadowing she displayed as the story played out. Despite being really smart and usually being on her game, she had several lapses in judgment. She forgot to pre-trip the rocket before blasting off, she carelessly steered the rocket into an asteroid shower, and gave Leni the wrong code and then tried to blame her for what happened. It turned out her forgetfulness, including that one moment where she thought her own diagram looked like a bunch of gibberish, and her inability to focus were the result of not having her snack and nap like Leni insisted she have. When you consider all the time Lisa put into working on her rocket and completely put off eating and sleeping, her cognitive functions were on a decline, and this led to her screwing things up when she normally would have never let that happen. Yeah, I know she didn't look that deprived on screen, but hopefully you see what I'm getting at. So Lisa finally did what Leni had been asking her to do all along. She ate some food, shook herself awake thanks to Leni's instructions, and was able to get away from the sun before it was too too late. By the way, if there was a code for regaining control of the ship, why didn't Lisa just have Leni enter the code she used earlier instead of manually trying to fix the steering herself? Better yet, how did she suddenly forget about the rocket booster she was just using a few minutes earlier when the ship was being pulled into the sun? Had Leni not remembered the code, her little sister would have gotten fried. So those were a few head-scratching moments. But no matter what, Lisa still came to admit she was wrong for not listening to her big sister and promised to listen to what she has to say more often. There's actually one more thing I do want to talk about in regard to Leni, but first let's get to my final thoughts. Overall, this was a fun little out-of-this-world adventure with Lisa and Leni, and they had a great dynamic. Leni stepped up her game as the family babysitter following the boss maybe, and had some standout moments of intelligence and compassion. Lisa learned that maybe other people besides herself just might have her best interests at heart, and that ignoring them can lead to her own undoing. The foreshadowing leading up to her impending demise was pretty good, and despite the head-scratching moments that go against all logic when Lisa was both inside and outside the rocket, this was another episode with a unique character pairing, and no other characters could have made this story work. Seriously, can you name another member of the family who could fly a rocket into space without failure? I welcome the challenge. With that said, I give Space Jammed an 8.4 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Space Jammed. There's one last thing that always catches my attention when it comes to Leni, and it's something I've been noticing since season 4. Have you ever noticed how Leni sometimes has bags around her eyes? Unlike other characters whose bags are always there regardless of being stressed or calm, Leni's are never consistent throughout a single episode, including this one. She'll be drawn without them in one scene and then drawn with them in another, and they sometimes go back and forth in the same scene but in different frames. I don't know why, but any scene from any episode with Leni acting calm yet displaying very visible bags around her eyes just makes you wonder what's been causing some underlying stress in her life. Is she not getting enough sleep? Is she feeling the pressures of her job, school, and or family? It's hard to say. So yeah, now that I've brought up this little change in her physical character, I bet you can't unsee it going forward, and this image of hers might be on your mind the next time you watch an episode where she makes an appearance, especially in a scene where she's not freaking out over anything. But anyway, as far as the rest of this episode goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.